In this update, we've got huge storms every day this upcoming week building on the north side of a ridge of high pressure, bringing some hurricane force wind gusts and some larger hail as the ridge will really start to intensify and bring some of the hottest temperatures of the season that we have seen. Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here with your afternoon update. This is Sunday, right before the holiday. So let's go over and delve out the details. I know a lot of you guys are out there grilling, spending the time with the family, hanging out outdoors. So you need to be aware of what's happening in your neck of the woods. So this afternoon, we do have some pretty significant storms. They're going to be blowing up on the north side of this warm front. You can actually see we do have an enhanced risk for severe weather for a good chunk of Montana. That includes Bozeman, getting into Dickinson, all the way into Glendive, Montana, as well as far south into Pierre, South Dakota, going into Rapid City. Those areas are what they call under a hatched risk for severe weather, bringing those winds upwards to 70, if not almost 80 miles an hour. This afternoon, with the storms blowing up on the north side of this warm front, these will be traversing down and moving more or less east southeast throughout the afternoon. So you definitely be on high alert up there, up into that neck of the woods. But further south, we do actually have a little bit of instability as we had that weakening low pressure that sent all that heavier rains along the coast. That's actually bringing some scattered shower activity in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Most of it's actually northwest of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but they are seeing some much needed rain out there as we're just seeing scattered shower, kind of more or less diurnal type heating thunderstorms. All this activity will really kind of pulse down as the sun sets tonight. But yeah, let me take a look at the overall severe weather watch going on right now. It's right in that area that we talked about, into Dillon, into Bozeman, Montana, going into Billings. Those are the areas that could see some of that tennis ball size hail blowing up in the heat of the afternoon, and then have scattered gusts of up to 80 miles an hour is definitely not out of the question with this activity. And you can't even rule out an isolated tornado threat. So this actually goes on until about 8 o'clock this evening. So definitely be weather aware if you live up there, because these storms could significantly really be packing a punch. And I think this is just the kind of the beginning stages of what's to come, as these series of mesoscale convective systems will be blowing up in the heat of the afternoon and diving east to southeastward on the north side of that ridge. We've got all the way from now, really all through next weekend, we're going to be talking about storms threats like these almost on a daily basis. So yeah, in fact, it's actually me and my wife's 18th wedding anniversary today. I included actually a picture of actually 19 years ago. This was one of the her mom got remarried, and this is actually at her wedding about 19 years ago. I was actually 28 28 years old in this picture, and here we are last night. My wife's name's Chris, and we went out to dinner and we kind of snapped a shot. So you can actually see where we started and where we are now 18 years later. So yeah, so we got an anniversary we're going to be celebrating later on today, as we got a little bit of a get together. But as I was actually recording this video, my subscriber count actually stopped at like 11111. So I thought that was pretty cool to share. So it's got to be good luck, right? So hey, if you are new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because I do a detailed weather breakdowns almost on a daily basis on this channel. So let's get back to the weather here and take a look at the overall water vapor imagery as we go into your holiday for tomorrow on the 4th. We've got a lot of dry air coming in off the west coast. That's typically what you see this time of year, especially with that La Nina still firmly locked in place. Unfortunately, these whole areas are just bone dry. Fortunately, we do have that monsoon that actually came back, is helping these areas down here for the last couple of weeks. But the name of the game is just to the north, because we got a huge ridge of high pressure that's going to be really dominating for much of the south and the southern plains this week. And just to the north of there, we're going to be having series of systems, these mesoscale convective systems, going to be traversing just on the north side. So the storm threat going into Monday could be along into Iowa, going into Wisconsin, getting into Illinois. In fact, if you look at the Storm Prediction Center setup, yeah, we could be looking at more storms kind of blowing up in the heat of the afternoon like we are today, back in Billings, back into Great Falls, getting into Rapid City, South Dakota. This traverses east to southeast, right along this boundary. South of there, you got that ridge of high pressure. They call these ridge riders. And then those storms could be packing a punch for sure. I mean, this is an area over in Illinois that's kind of been missing out on a lot of the severe weather so far this season. I do think with this alignment, you're going to be more in line for the severe storms all throughout the week as these traverses down to this boundary. So if you live in Chicago, going into Milwaukee, into Madison, into Aurora, back into Rockford, you could be under the gun to seeing those larger hailstones and those wind gusts of 70, 80 miles an hour tomorrow as these storms will be traversing across east southeast along the northwest flow. So definitely be on the lookout for those severe storms in the heat of the afternoon. And then it's all complements of this ridge of high pressure that's really going to be starting to build and kind of dominate for much of the week. You can actually see where the boundary is, where it sets up, just where the lighter shade of red. That's on the north side of there. That's where you're going to be under the gun to seeing some of those mesoscale convective systems blowing up over the Dakotas, traveling east southeast right along this boundary into Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, going into Indiana. As this ridge will start to intensify and as it builds throughout the week, that'll slowly shift the storm threat a little bit further off into a little bit further south as we get deeper into the week. Here's your setup on Tuesday. Again, another mesoscale convective systems will blow up over the Dakotas, traveling east southeast. So this whole alignment is going to be in line for yet another round of damaging winds and larger hail. As further to the south, you've got tons of sinking dry air. You got plenty of sunshine and no rain to speak of under that ridge of high pressure. And there is the setup as we go into your Tuesday time frame. Again, another setup, Billings, going into Rapid City, going into Valentine. The same areas are going to be hit today, tomorrow, going into Tuesday, traversing along this boundary as the ridge of high pressure will slowly build and slowly shift westbound. That tilts the storm threat a little bit further south. So now you're talking areas getting into southern Indiana, more or less going into central and southern Ohio, getting into portions of Kentucky by then, West Virginia, going into Pennsylvania, into Pittsburgh, those areas extending into DC, into Baltimore. Those areas will be aligned with these storms as they blow up over the Dakotas, traveling east southeast, and then setting up shop along this boundary on the north side of that ridge. And here's an idea. This gives you an example of these little mesoscale convective systems with these short range models. Here's the NAM3K on Tuesday with these mesoscale systems. That's not a misprint, folks. That's 92 miles an hour. So as these storms form, you can see the potential today up to 80 miles an hour, no question. So as these features start to bow out, yeah, that's indicative of some stronger wind gusts. As they start to bow out, these storms will be moving quick. We're talking 50, 60, even upwards to 70 miles an hour is not out of the question. And they could be really extending and elevating those winds to hurricane force wind gusts, 70, 80, even upwards to possibly 90 miles an hour. It's definitely not out of the question. And this is almost occurring somewhere on a daily basis, just on that northern side of that ridge this week. And so here's the setup by Wednesday, kind of the same deal. This is your instability. It will more or less follow the instability. South Dakota, boom, blow up over southern Minnesota, get into Iowa with the pretty extreme Cape values over there. Get into Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia. So this is Wednesday. I mean, so we're talking a series of storms all throughout the week. South of there, you got that ridge of high pressure going to be dominating much of the week. There's your water vapor imagery as we go into your Thursday time frame. Again, same deal. You got the ridge of high pressure underneath. You got the monsoonal flow into portions of New Mexico. You've got all the drier air sinking in out west. And what's this? That's Bonnie. Hey, Bonnie. Let me just take you back. Bonnie was actually a tropical wave that came off the coast of Africa, traverses westbound, went through the Caribbean, dived southward, crossed over Central America, went on to the Pacific side, and now we're talking, here's Bonnie. Here it is by Thursday. As a hurricane, folks, that's pretty impressive. Going take you back all the way from even 2 weeks ago, and that little tropical wave came off the coast of Africa, that it held together that long, crossed over from the Atlantic into the Pacific, and it's still a hurricane out there in the open waters of the Pacific. So that's been an impressive storm, even though it's not going to be impacting anybody out here. It's going to be going to the no man's land, and then it's going to eventually dissipate, and we're going to be saying goodbye to Bonnie. So, but it's all about the heat further south, guys. Unfortunately, there's not much break in this pattern, as the ridge of high pressure will be dominating for a good chunk of the week. And then as it dominates and as the air continues to dry out, the atmosphere cranks it up a touch a little bit further. So we got the hottest temperatures of the season by far over a good chunk of Texas, Oklahoma, get into possibly Arkansas, get into Missouri, even Denver, as the ridge of high pressure will be slowly shifting a little bit further west as we get all throughout the week. By the time we get into the Friday for Saturday time frame, we could be approaching, even in Denver, triple digit heat is no question on the table, as that ridge of high pressure will be expanding. And then underneath that, here's your humidity values. I mean, you can see where all the brown shaded areas, that's all your bone dry air. There's not much rain to speak of under that, that dry air that's coming on off the west coast, and that ridge of high pressure. The only subtle hint of moisture is the monsoonal flow that's going to be continuing into the Mexico. But you can see where all the deep moisture is, right along that boundary, right along where the northern side of that ridge. Even as you go all the way into Friday, going into Saturday, and underneath that deep green, you can imagine it's going to be sticky, right? It's going to be the dew point, you're talking 70, 72, 75. That's oppressive, folks. That cranks up the heat index. Underneath the higher temperatures, you're still going to have hot temperatures, but it won't feel as hot. It won't feel as hot because the air is going to be really dry, the soil is going to be really dry, and it's going to be more of a dry heat versus more of an impressive heat. If that will help you out a little bit, folks. So as we go into Saturday, there's the ridge of high pressure just really starting to expand by then. We're seeing numerous triple digit heats going into Saturday. This will be by Sunday, but we start to see subtle hints, right? Because I mentioned the ridge of high pressure will not only be building, but expanding throughout the week, but slowly shifted off to the west. But as it does, it's going to allow this little trough up here off the far northeast here, bring kind of a backdoor front, bring some cooler conditions by then off to the northeast, getting into the Hollow Valley. That is going to shut and put the clamps on the severe threat, shut it down, and then bring in some cooler air masses into that region, as the storm threat and all that series of storms will probably take a respite by then. But we got a lot of bumpy ride to be dealing with between now and then, and you can see it on the 500 millibar. You got that backdoor front sneaking in, bringing cooler conditions for the northeast, breaking down that ridge, as the ridge will slowly shift off into the west. That will actually potentially bring a backdoor front and bring your next rain chance. In Texas, you're going to be dealing with a drier week, but these are subtle rain chances. It's at least something down there. That it won't be until next weekend, after a very hot week. By late Sunday, we could be having that backdoor front entering portions of Texas again, elongating into the portions of the deep south, bringing some rain chances along its wake. But here's the setup for the week. So here's your rain chances, right? You got the ridge of high pressure pretty much dominating over the central plains, central US. You got all that dry air coming off the west coast here. You got the monsoonal flow, but here's the setup with the deeper moisture coming in, blowing up. These mesoscale convective systems blow up over the Dakotas, travel east southeast. We're talking places like Iowa, getting into central and northern Illinois, getting into Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia, going all the way into the Carolinas, right? So this boundary, this is going to be your culprit this week of these series of storms going to be blowing up traveling east southeast on the northern side of that ridge, and those storms are going to be sending copious amounts of rain, some very high winds, 70, 80, if not upwards to 90-mile-per-hour winds at time, some very large hail potential with these systems. They'll pulse down as the sun sets, and they'll blow up again as we go into the heat of the afternoon, and then it'll be a repeat, kind of a rinse and repeat almost all week long. So you got to be on high alert as these storms could really start to take shape, and if they do start to bow out, they could actually even have some sort of derecho type setup potential as they continue to dive east southeast, and they kind of elongate and then branch out on each other. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.